thank you all for coming. I know that you came from abroad and it's summer, so it's a difficult time to get everything together, but it's great to see all of you here. So I'm going to just read a synopsis of my dissertation, and I'm going to try to make it as interesting as possible. But I wanted to start off by telling you how I got interested in the animal as a topic in philosophy. And it was actually a highly personal topic for me. In particular, at 16, I read Singer's Animal Liberation for an English class project on how I would change the world. And there was a chapter called Down on the Factory Farm that told a tale of the mass meat production industry. And it kind of revealed as well this myth of the down-home country farm of this iconic American pastime. And instead, real meat production was more like a prison industrial complex. It was governed by a methodical economic calculation of minimizing cage space and maximizing profit. And all of this was done for the uncommodifiable expense of the lost animal's quality of life. So I found this narrative to be shocking, in particular because there's this kind of schism in American thought, on the one side between the vision of the animal's place in our food economy, and on the other, this excessively commercialized market of domesticated animals and animal companions. But it was actually social contract theory and my reading of Plato's Republic that started my awareness of the conceptual and philosophical importance of the animal in the history of political thought. In particular, political philosophers gestured to the animal as a mirror, a distant ancestor of humanity, and a symbol for both our inherent sociality and our enlightened evolution in modern polities. So the social contractors looked to nature in order to garner the original ethical life of the species. We are humans, but by positing this trope of a hypothetical past, right, the state of nature in which humans were essentially savages, lawless savages, we once again became animal. And in some philosophies, this was to our chagrin and loss, and in others, it was to our pleasure and benefit. So I knew that this topic of the animal could and did and will still overwhelm me. So pursuing such a broad topic had a wide scope that I had to kind of cage in, Dorothy pun intended. Thus I attempted to set limits, and my intention was to first posit the animal as an anthropological ancestor in the history of political thought. Second, to see where and how humanity originated as a distinct species in this thought. And third, to locate the origins of humanity's dominion over animal life, and to determine if this dominion necessitates the exclusion of the animal from ethical consideration. Last but not least, and this is kind of what I tried to do in my last chapters, I wanted to incorporate what I thought to be the significance of my personal relatings to animals into an ethics that did justice to their significance as companions and to what I saw as their immediate ethical recognition, or what they should be extended on the basis of their vital interests. So thus, I combined this kind of personal phenomenology of my experiences with particular animals to contemporary environmental ethical theory in order to propose a broad concept of ethical obligation, which I called vital ethics, and which can grant the moral importance of an organism's interests while applying systemic value to the insentient but nonetheless vital components to an ecosystem. So my goal in the end was not to limit moral value to specific duties, and nor was it to enter this atomistic approach of hedonistic calculations based on a particular organism's sentience, that would be Singer's approach, but rather to spread value to the whole of an ecosystem by rejecting the individuated atomistic approach for the logic of environmental ethics. So since my method was historical, my chapters followed a figure-based approach, going through Plato, Hobbes, Locke, and Jean-Jacques Rousseau. But I also realized at some point that limiting my thesis to politics would just completely ignore the influence of this great philosopher by the name of René Descartes, who basically set up a series of metaphysical distinctions in which he asserted that the human was superior to the animal on the basis of our possession of a soul and the animal's mechanical or automated life. So there was also this ontology that was going alongside. Ontology meaning questions of being, what actually comprises a being? How is the human distinct? All those questions came up as I was doing this kind of political research. And under Descartes, what I found was the animal now became kind of purely mechanical, soulless object to be utilized in any way for its instrumental value to human ends. And like any object of property, animals could be treated as objects of exchange, objects that can be dissected, even when this meant, their entire destruction from our moral discourse. So, going back historically, I located the complete objectification and commodification of the animal at a particular moment in modern political theory, resulting from the distinctly economic basis for government that was justified by Locke's second treatise, as well as the creation of the human government as the artificial animal, as asserted distinct from the other naturally social species of Thomas Hobbes. But most compellingly, in ancient Greek thought, we don't see this type of separation. We don't see a distinction of human soul from animal soul. So humanity is explicitly animal in Aristotle's politics, man being the political animal. In fact, humanity surpasses animal life in being more of a political animal than a bee or any other gregarious animal, he says. But it is the particularity of the of the human's ability to have perception of what is good or bad, just or unjust, that cements the formation of a primitive community for Aristotle. But just as Aristotle's political society falls into a natural order of master over slave, the animality of the human species does not prevent him from asserting another hierarchy of kind. So as master over slave, so he asserted man over woman, so too he asserted human over animal. So again, there's this kind of instrumentalization of the animal as it's a naturally ordained tool for human use. But this conceptual dominion and hierarchical ordering was little present in my reading of Plato's ideal polis, the Republic. Instead, I found the animal to be kind of prominent in human life, and its domestication paralleled the pedagogy of the guardian class. The guardian class in his ideal city was the class of protectors who were well educated, from whom rulers would eventually be chosen. And I found that in this guardian education and this pedagogy, the training and cultivation of the guardian class and the corresponding development of superior faculties in the human person were explicitly drawn from the ideals of animal rearing. In particular, the qualities of the guardian class were likened to the qualities of a well-trained and carefully bred canine. So often the comparison is so explicit that Plato fails to distinguish the guardian class from animals. So he fails to distinguish man from animals, referring to the guardian watchdogs or hard, lean dogs with the qualities of sleepless hounds. But it was in the development of the soul where the animal became properly philosophical for me and for Plato. Plato did not rest on Descartes' baseless metaphysical distinction between the soul, the psyche, of man and that of animals, or the lack thereof. Instead, he unified human and animal energy into one narrative, where animated life is governed by a tripartite division in the soul, as simultaneously appetitive, spirited, and philosophical. Animals did not lack any of these qualities, as is apparent in his procedure for the education and domestication of the guardian class. So I want to just read a block quote, and it has this dialogic structure, so it's in between him and I think Glauson is the interlocutor. So he writes on the nature of the soul. We overlook the fact that there are natures of the thought of the sort that we thought impossible, natures in which these opposites are indeed combined. And his interlocutor says, where? You can see them in other animals too, but especially in the one to which we compared to the guardian. For you know, of course, that a pedigree dog naturally has a character of this sort. He is gentle as can be to those he's used to and knows, but the opposite to those he doesn't know. I do know that. So the combination we want is possible, after all, and our search for the good guardian is not contrary to nature. Apparently not. Then do you think that our future guardian, besides being spirited, must also be philosophical? How do you mean? I don't understand. It's something else you see in dogs.